My name is Gene Sharp, and this is the work I do.
This is a technique of combat. It is a substitute for war and other violence.
As we speak, somebody is doing it in Iran. As we speak, somebody is doing it in Egypt. As we speak, somebody is doing it in Venezuela. I'm telling you the facts I know.
To be counted as a threat to a tyrant is a matter of pride, I would say. It means we're effective. It means we're relevant. It means out of this very small office, we produce work that threatens regimes.
Gene Sharp's tactics and theories are being practiced on the streets of Syria as we speak now.
It shows that what Gene was talking about year after year after year, there are realistic alternatives to violent conflict.
Unless they have something instead of violence and war, they will go back to violence and war every time.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Just 8 miles from where we are today is a town called Stabekk. It was there on May 22nd, 1942, that Vidkun Quisling, the Nazi-backed dictator of Norway during World War II, gathered all of the teachers of the town in a crowded high school gymnasium. Quisling screamed and he shouted at the teachers, and his voice could be heard from outside the building. He said, "You teachers have destroyed everything for me." Quisling was furious, and for good reason. Just 2 years earlier, Nazi Germany had invaded Norway, and though they put up a courageous resistance, the Norwegian army was defeated in just 2 months. One of Quisling's first goals after taking power was to try to take over the Norwegian education system. He wanted to seize the minds of the Norwegian people by using the schools as a tool to indoctrinate students with Nazi ideology. Quisling realized that to do this, he needed the cooperation of Norway's teachers. But Norwegian teachers refused to cooperate. At first, the resistance took on symbolic forms, and they expressed their dissent through various symbols. They pinned paper clips to their clothes to express unity among the people, and they wore flowers to honor the exiled king for his birthday. But what started as symbolic resistance eventually expanded to massive non-cooperation that included thousands of teachers. Everywhere, teachers and their supporters were resisting. They refused to join a new teachers' organization or issue declarations of loyalty to the regime, even though that was mandatory. They boycotted political events and they ostracized collaborators. The regime's reaction was harsh. Schools were closed throughout the country, teachers were fired, some were arrested and tortured. 1,000 of the teachers were sent to concentration camps. In the camps, the teachers were threatened with deportation and even execution. But still, the teachers refused to submit. Eventually, it became clear to Quisling that he was not going to achieve what he wanted from the teachers, so he brought the teachers back from the camps and he reopened the schools. The teachers had won. In 1956, the Norwegian philosopher Arne Næss invited my colleague Jean Sharp to the University of Oslo, where Jane interviewed one of the leaders of the teacher struggle. It was during this time, right here in Norway, where Jean first began to seriously explore how nonviolent action could be studied in order to be made more effective so it could be applied by people facing difficult circumstances. The Norwegian story had a huge impact on Jean's thinking, and he's still amazed that the story is not better known. The story holds some very important insights. The Norwegian teachers were not saints, they were not martyrs, they were not Mahatmas. They were ordinary women and men, and they were successful where military means failed. So Jean began to think then, what could be made possible when people facing difficult circumstances have access to tools and knowledge that can help them to develop wise strategic plans? It was those early questions and insights that led Jean on a journey that would go on to empower people around the world. After Norway, Jean went to Oxford University, where he had his eureka moment, that the power of a ruler comes from the obedience and cooperation of people and institutions in society, and that nonviolent action works by withholding or cutting off the supply of that obedience and cooperation. It's a way to seize political power and to deny it to others. In nonviolent action, people refuse to do the things that are required, and they do that which is forbidden. It's the political application of a type of behavior that actually comes very naturally to all of us. Basic human stubbornness. It's the capacity and the willingness to refuse to cooperate, to dissent and to defy, even when that refusal carries enormous costs. In short, it starts with the power of no. Jean studied dictatorships in order to learn how they operate and what makes them possible, and at times even inevitable. He studied hundreds of cases of nonviolent action that have been used throughout centuries, and he began cataloging them. Method 34, symbolic lights. Use torches, candles, and lanterns in marches, in vigils, as tools of protest, or as symbols of freedom. In February 1997, households across Turkey turned off their lights at exactly 9 p.m. for 1 minute. This was in order to demand the prosecution of government officials that were connected to organized crime. The action continued and grew each night until it's estimated that 30 million Turkish households were participating in the action, and the action ended up being successful. Method 193, overloading of administrative systems. Deliberately providing government offices with an overload of information, inquiries, and complaints in order to cause inefficiencies in their system and to disrupt their activities. This method was particularly useful in the United States during the Vietnam War, when government offices, specifically draft registration offices, were overloaded with customers and complaints. Because of new technology, we see an innovation in this method. Today, we see the same method being used to crash the servers of corporations and governments. Method 171, nonviolent interjection. It's the placing of one's body between a person and their objective, like in the path of a vehicle. Jean kept going, studying and documenting all of these things that people had done, until he had identified the now famous 198 methods of nonviolent action. He found out that most often, when people use nonviolent struggle, they don't do so because of their religion or their beliefs, but because they are simply searching for an effective way to fight for their objectives. The more Jean studied nonviolent action, the more he learned about how it worked and what makes it succeed in some cases and fail in others. And from this knowledge, he created a system out of what people had previously been learning and applying by trial and error. His research revealed an important insight. The way to create lasting change against an oppressive system is to undermine it so that it crumbles. But equally important is that a movement must build itself and become strong. That just as a weak person is more vulnerable to abuse, so also is a weak society more vulnerable to tyranny and oppression. Through more than 60 years of persistence and tireless work, Jean has created a body of knowledge that is now the basis of our understanding about the nature and the potential of nonviolent struggle. His writings are in more than 50 languages and are read in almost every country in the world by political dissidents and women's rights groups and environmental groups and people involved in anti-corruption and anti-capitalist struggles. His research is being used to both undermine dictatorships and oppressive systems and also to defend and protect democratic institutions. His research even contains very important insights on how groups can protect the gains made during a successful struggle and prevent a new group from stealing their victory. The work has contributed to some of the most notable political struggles of the late 20th and early 21st century. The Baltic nations, Burma, Palestine, Serbia, Venezuela, Tibet, Hong Kong, they're just a few. There will be more. Nonviolent action is not easy. Just like every other technique of political change, it offers no guarantees. But today, the work is empowering people all over the world, including in Afghanistan, where I was born, and in the United States, where I grew up. And guess what? The work is even being studied right here in Norway. Even in the icy waters of the Antarctic Ocean, copies of our books sit on the shelves of anti-whaling ships. Jean would have loved to be here today to meet all of you. He would have been greatly inspired by the acts of defiance and the stories of resistance that you have shared with us. I've had the honor of working with him for 12 years at the Albert Einstein Institution, which he founded. And I wanted to say a bit about what he's meant to me and what I think his work has meant for the world. In a way, Jean's life is a metaphor for the work to which he has dedicated his life. Jean never gave up, even when people told him that what he was doing was idealistic or unneeded or unimportant, or that it simply wouldn't work. In response to what he saw were the critical issues that threatened humanity, war, dictatorship, oppression, violence, he used courage and persistence, careful thinking and wise planning to search for what he saw was the solution, a way in which people facing difficult circumstances could self-reliantly get liberation. Today, it's an honor to be here, and what I'd like to leave you with is this. Opponents of freedom would like us to believe that our choices when facing conflict are to either use violence, in which they have superior capacity, or to do nothing. But history tells us that there is an alternative to both war and to passivity, and that alternative is powerful and it is effective. And it has been used for centuries, not perfectly, but despite this, it has achieved significant victories. It can be learned and applied with greater effectiveness than in the struggles of the past. We no longer need to reinvent the wheel or rely on intuition or improvisation. The tools to conduct nonviolent struggle effectively exist, and they're being improved and refined every day by people around the world, many of whom are in this room today. We all wish for a more peaceful and just world, but peace and justice do not come to those who simply wish for it hard enough or who ask for it politely. Conflict in our world is inevitable, but the good news is it can be conducted powerfully and without violence. Thank you.